Hey everyone, how you doing today? It is time for the monthly wrap-up, February edition. I assure you, I do know the days of the week, just apparent... no, I don't. I do know the months in the year. I'm just having a bit of a brain fog day, and yeah, it's not good. So I have a bunch of books that I'm going to go through. But first of all, I just want to say I am trialing some new glass frames from Glasses Direct, and it's not sponsored or anything, but I am just trialing some new glass frames, and unfortunately for these ones, the lenses have the logo of the brand on the actual lens. The proper glasses don't, but this one does, and it's really frustrating because it's like, well, I want to get a proper feel for them, but it's annoying because obviously it's on there, so I apologise. Please just try to ignore it. But it also does mean, because these don't have my prescription in, you'll see me ducking and doing a lot of squinting at my computer that's just below the screen, so I can actually read my core pile stats. But yeah, just wanted to give you a heads up, so I'm not being weird, I'm just blind right now, or almost blind right now. So February actually started off quite slow, but did end up being a reasonable month. I actually read more in February than I did in January. However, because I did have one complete DNF, it does mean I think January had more completed books, even though February had more stuff that I started. And I'm going to start with the books that there's one book that I have completely DNF'd, I won't go back to, and I think I'm just going to try I know there's a movie series out, so I'm going to just watch that, and that is Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan. I essentially got overwhelmed from page 1, where you have a quite big family tree, complete with a ton of side notes with all of these different characters. And then when you start reading the book, even on like the first page, there's footnotes. And when I flip through, sort of at least every 5 or 6 pages, there's like footnotes and all sorts. And I can't stand books that have footnotes. Either include it in the writing or don't include it at all. Like, why do people need to add footnotes to fiction? Huge bugbear of mine. It's the reason why I couldn't finish Nevernight either, because I was just getting so lost and confused. And yeah, I just got within literally that, trying to follow the family tree really sort of hit me in the wrong place. And then when I started reading, I was just like, I'm not enjoying this, so I just stopped, and I don't think I'll go back to it. The next sort of section are the books that I started and just didn't get around to finishing, but I do want to finish. These are not books that I've abandoned by any means. These are ones I will finish. The first of these is Our Violent Ends by Chloe Gong. I got about 50 pages in. Every time I picked it up, I don't know, I just wasn't feeling it. I couldn't get sunk into it, which I did the first day when I got the first like 40 pages done, and then the next 3 days it took me to do the next like 20 pages each time. I will go back and I will continue it. It's just, for some reason, it just didn't gel with me this month. Then there was A Vow So Bold and Deadly by Bridget Kemmerer, which is the final book in the Cursebreakers series. I only got about 10 pages into that one, and I wasn't vibing with it. I started the month really heavy on fantasy, and by the end of the month, I'd gone mostly to contemporary until my last book, which I'll get to in a bit. And yeah, for some reason, I hit a wall, and it was like, I don't want to read any more fantasy. I want to move on to contemporary stuff or something a bit different. But in terms of books that I intended to read, because there were a few adjustments and changes throughout the month, I did read A Heart So Fierce and Broken by Bridget Kemmerer, which was book 2 in the Cursebreakers series. And I gave this one, let me have a look. This one got a solid 8 on Core Pile, so it's 4.5 stars. And I really enjoyed it. At first, I was really struggling, and I very nearly DNF'd it until we got to the point where Gray meets, Leah Maria. Once they kind of like met, everything suddenly got much better, and by the end of the book I was really enjoying it. There was a little bit that annoyed me at the very end, that I was a bit like, really? You're going to go there? Why couldn't we have had something different? But I'm still excited to finish this trilogy now. I'm kind of at the moment still not quite on the hype train with it, but it's good for what it is. And I did like some of the new characters in this one. I really liked Leah Maria, and I liked the I'm not going to say, there is another character who I really, really, really liked, and he was really funny and surprisingly tender at moments. So it was really good. And we got to see a lot more of Harper's brother in this one. And it was just nice to see more development of his character and his, like, how he feels about being in this world. I then read 10 Dance Volume 2. And honestly, I am giving up this series. I'm really struggling to follow it. I have forgotten who most of the characters are. It's really difficult to... It kind of bounces around quite a lot, and you get introduced to someone, then they're gone, they're new, and I don't know, I'm just finding it really difficult to follow, and I'm just not enjoying it. And it's a shame because I was really excited for it, but I've just decided, no, I'm not continuing. I think, yeah, this one only got a 2-star and a 2.57 on the core pile. So this one, unfortunately, was a miss for me. And like I said, I'm now going to be discontinuing this series. The actual first book that I read of the month was an arc that I had, which was Only a Monster by Vanessa Len. And it was so good. I loved it. I had a great time with it. There were twists and turns I didn't see coming, even though there was a kind of forbidden romance, Romeo and Juliet type, which I do not enjoy very much. I was still intrigued, and I'm not invested, I will admit, in the main romance of this book. I was kind of really hoping it was going to go a different way, but I still wasn't disappointed, and it ended in a really unique and interesting way that now has me desperate to continue the series. But as I've discovered, the downside of being granted arcs is you have even longer than the standard viewer to wait for the sequels, which is a bugger. So yeah, I had to wait for that, and I loved it. I thought the characters were great. There was a lot of good banter in there. I had a couple of bits that I didn't quite enjoy. They do deal with the topic of grief and trauma, but it was sort of very gently glossed over, and I would have liked them to explore that in a bit more depth. But I'm hoping maybe in the next book, because of the way things have gone and are going, I'm really hoping that that's going to basically be developed more in the next book. I can see the character being more affected in the next book. But it's going to be very, very interesting because some stuff has happened, and it's now going to be very, very interesting to see how each of the characters deals with it in the sequel, and it was brilliant. I gave it a 5-star. It was exactly 9 on the core pile, so it was just a 5-star, but a 5-star nonetheless. Very enjoyable, and I think it's a really good one for like an introduction to YA. Then the next book that I finished was Silver Silence by Nalini Singh. And yeah, this one is still in my top 3 for this series, and it's not like I have a 1, 2, 3, it's just these are the 3 that are my favourite books in this series. And this one was the first time I decided to annotate. So I have actually got some highlighted paragraphs, and in the back of the book I wrote myself a little list of who's who from the Bear Clan as like a little just reference guide to who each character is. And then at the very back I've written a list of the pages that I've highlighted and quoted. And this book I feel has got some of the best quotes in the entire series and some of the funniest bits. And there were a few bits in here where it talked about how people smelled, so obviously I've been noting down that for my future candles. And yeah, there were just some really funny moments, and see if I can find one of the bits that I highlighted to read out, because I love it. Oh, here we go. So this is like, every now and again they put extracts from like communications. So it's got glasses broken, 132, chairs broken, 12, jukeboxes turned upside down because some bear thought it was hilarious, 1. Bill to follow, no charge for the spilled alcohol. Your bears were very careful not to do that. That bill's going to Selenka, who is the wolf alpha. And I just found that really, really funny, this idea of the wolves and the bears, they're always clashing. And just the thought that this fight's broken out, and yet the bears didn't spill a single drop of alcohol, but one did turn the jukebox upside down for shits and giggles. I just thought that was brilliant. And I love the bears. They are just, I think of all the changelings so far, they are by far my favourites. And I wish that there was more with them. Was a 9.29, so again, that was a 5-star. Of course, it's going to be. My laptop's just gone into hypersonic mode, so I apologise if you can now hear it. And then I started to go off script a little bit. I went to the library and picked up some books, so I decided to play around with some of my reading prompts. And I read Anxious People by Frederick Backman. Now, Clumsy Charlotte talks about him a lot. I think she said he's her favourite author. And basically, I saw her go on about it enough that I decided it was my turn to give him a try. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. It wasn't amazing. There were some pretty hilarious bits in here, and it was good enough that I now want to get a copy of it to reread, to make some highlights, because there were some banging quotes in here that had me giggling and sniggering. And there were some very profound moments as well that I thought were beautiful. And I think I gave this one was a 4.5 stars and was 8.43 on Corepile. So almost a 5-star, but there were a couple of bits. I found that it jumped around a little bit too much, and sometimes it just felt a bit too disjointed, and I did struggle a little bit to understand certain things. But on the whole, it was really, really good. And I found the ending kind of let me down a little bit. It did also make me tear up, so that was an instant like 9.5 for atmosphere. But it's enough that I now really want to read more of his stuff. And I did quite enjoy it. I did laugh a lot, I did cry a little bit. And I did have overall a very good time reading this. Then I had an unexpected gift through the post from the lovely Shah over at Thoroughly Enjoyed Books. And she sent me, because I've been going through such a rough patch, she sent me a little gift just to sort of try and cheer me up and pick me up. And that was The Gravity of Us by Phil Stamper. And I've had this on my wish list for quite a while. When it arrived, I decided I really wanted to pick me up. And this is where I think Anxious People started me wanting to read more contemporary. This is where I hit the fantasy block. And then I read this and I was like, yes, this is what I was wanting. And it was so lovely. I really enjoyed it. I've always been a bit of a science space kid. And so listening to some of the things and behind the scenes, and it pulled a nostalgic thing with me. And again, I did highlight and I have annotated a couple of bits in this book. But the problem that I had is I got so absorbed in it, I kept forgetting to make notes. So there's a few bits now where I'm thinking about and I'm like, oh, I really wish I'd highlighted that, because now I can't remember where in the book it is. And it was really interesting because at the start of this, I did not like Cal. I thought he was your typical journalist being an absolute dick. And I was like, I don't like him. I'm going to hate this book. But by the end, I completely 180'd. I loved him. I was rooting for him, and I thought everything came together really, really, really well. And it was a brilliantly written book, and definitely one I want to reread. And it was exactly what I needed. It was light-hearted, but with some darker, heavier moments. But it was just refreshing and so different to the other stuff that I'd been reading that it just really helped re-engage my brain into reading. And also with this being like the second book that I annotated, it was also like quite exciting with that. And yeah, so thank you so much, Shah. This really did help. And this one got, stupidly, I've not actually put it into core pile, so I've actually read more than I thought I did in February. So I will get that done, and editing Kirsty will add that in. I also just remembered there was one other book that I didn't finish, and that is The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan, I want to say. I'm probably wrong, but I'll check. And I did start that because that was another arc that I wanted to get done, and I think it was at that point because I'd started 3 fantasies within like 24 hours of each other, and I think that just kind of, my brain just went, we're fantasied out, we don't want to do this anymore. And I only actually did the first chapter on that one, but I will go back and redo it and finish it because I was intrigued. So I can't really say much more than that. And then the final book that I have thoughts on, and I'm considering doing a ranty, spoilery review at some point, and that is House of Sky and Breath. And I hate to say this, I was actually really disappointed. There were loads of bits that I thought should have been taken out and not included. There was so much repetition, it borderlined poor writing. Like, if Rune played with his lip ring one more time, and I'm not even kidding, every single time Rune appeared in the book, there was some mention of his lip piercing. And it just got to a point, it's like, we get it. He has a lip ring. He plays with it when he's nervous. Move on to something else. I felt that, yes, we were warned that this one was going to be spicy, but for me, there were only, of the maybe 6 or 7 like really spicy scenes that I can think of, there were 3 scenes that I loved that involved hot, steamy, sexy times. And of those, 2 of them involved Rune, and only 1 involved Bryce, because for some reason Sarah J. Maas has done like other authors that I otherwise have really loved, and when she comes to writing sex, it just goes from being really hot and actual spicy and sexy to ugh, and I sit there cringing or laughing. That happened quite a few times on the audiobook. I just burst out laughing, especially when one of the lines came out and I was just like, oh my god, I'm trying not to swear here. But it was like the slap and slide of their bodies. I was just like, are you kidding me with this writing? It's so bad. However, that being said, that side of things I really didn't like. I felt that the writing was getting repetitive, it was getting sloppy, and I still don't like Bryce as a character at all. I'm still not entirely convinced about Hunt. I love all the side characters. Ethan, by far, is a cinnamon roll we must protect. I love him. He's amazing. Tharian, I love. Declan, Tristan, Rune. Rune is by far the best character in this book. And there are just so many other characters that are so much better than Bryce and Hunt. And I want to know more about their stories. And I will admit, there were some bits in this that really had me like, wow, that was amazing. And there were some like revelations and twists that came in, some that I didn't see coming, a couple that I did kind of guess at based off the first book, and then I'm not going to spoil it, but the second to last chapter, I nearly threw the book across the room, and I have been put off the series quite a lot. It feels like I'm one of the only people that's had this reaction. However, if you have read it and you know what I'm on about, with it involving Bryce and the very last sort of scene that she's in, I'm not a fan. And I have no interest in that plot. And if it does go the way that I've got a feeling it's going to go, I may not continue the series. Because it's not a thing that I enjoy at all, and I hated it. However, the final chapter, that I'm not going to say who it involved, but the very final thing has got me super intrigued, and oh my god, there is one plot line that if they could now just focus on that, I would be so happy, because there is a bitch who deserves some comeuppance, and I cannot wait for that to happen. I was so torn, because the first book was my book of the year last year, and then this one It almost didn't even get 4 stars. It did get 4 stars in the end.
Editing Kirsty, I have changed my rating. I went back and I realised I'd rated a couple of bits a bit higher, and upon reflection, I just didn't feel that this was a 4-star read. So it is now a 3.5, and on Corpile is 6.86. So yeah.
Final thing that I also wanted to ask about this is I was told that there was a scene that had been deleted from I've not read the Akatar Akamath series. I have no interest in it. I just, from everything that I've heard about it, I hate it. But I was told that there was a scene that had been deleted from that was being included in this. And I had a friend who said that it was what she thought it was, but there wasn't any of that in there. So if someone could either DM me or put in the comments and just let me know. If it's going to be spoilery, then please message me over on Twitter. If it's not spoilery, please put in the comments like what the deleted scene, if you are aware, like, or if it did go in, like what that scene was, so I can actually like check and make sure that I know what it is. But yeah, I have no interest in that other series at all. So yeah, I have very, very conflicting feelings about this book. So on one hand, I absolutely adored it. On the other hand, I was getting really pissed off, really fed up, and then almost had it completely ruined for me. So we shall see how the rest of this is going to go. Ranting over. Thank you for sticking with me. That is my February wrap up. Like I said, I had a pretty good month all in. Apart from 1 2-star and 1 DNF, everything was above a 4-star. And I found some new favourites and some new authors that I cannot wait to read more of. How was your reading month? Let me know in the comments what your favourite book of the month was. For me, I think my book of the month is going to be Silver Silence. But if I take out the reread, then it would be Only a Monster. But because for my showdown I do include rereads, it will be Silver Silence, because hands down, like, that might end up being my book of the year. We don't know. But currently, I think that is going to be in the lead. So let me know what your book of the month was and what you're most anticipated to read in March. Hope you're good. I hope you're staying safe. And until the next time, bye.